It's been extremely exciting to be riding the Bitcoin wave over the last 11 years. And going back to El Salvador, I mean, I've thought about Bitcoin, how it's impacted my life individually. Now we're entering that territory where El Salvador leading the charge, making Bitcoin legal tender, putting it on their sovereign balance sheet. At the nation state level, honing in on El Salvador, considering the fact that you were just there, what kind of opportunities do you think Bitcoin unlocks for them specifically?
Well, I think I think that President Bukele is leading what I believe will be a movement by more enlightened leaders in emerging markets who are trying to break from the past and, the horrible cyclical and hugely cyclical booms and busts, and especially devaluations, which is a very relevant topic today. I'm shocked to see the Nigerian naira plummeting 50-60% over the last year or so. The Egyptian pound dropping 40% in March. I mean, think about how crushing that is to purchasing power and wealth of individuals. And so Bitcoin, and I know I don't have to tell this community, really is an insurance policy against what that is, which we believe it's confiscation of wealth. So I think it's becoming more and more relevant. The dollar's been going up. The dollar is up a lot in the last 10, 12 years relative to most currencies. I don't think many people understand how much it is up. And that is, debilitating to some of these emerging markets. And so, Bitcoin couldn't come around at a better time. If you have an internet connection and a smartphone, you have access to this insurance policy. And I think more and more individuals are going to take advantage of it. And the smart leaders in these countries are going to put a Bitcoin on their balance sheets because one of the devastating consequences of reserves running out is the IMF comes in and does all the wrong things. It raises tax rates. It cuts spending at a time when countries are already reeling. It's a failed strategy that they, it is their go-to. And I don't understand. If I were a leader in an emerging market, and I think even El Salvador is looking for funds from the IMF. But if I were a leader in an emerging market, I'd say, okay, well, this really
River's the best place to buy Bitcoin. Go to river.com/TFTC, sign up today, set up an account, and start stacking sats. Back to the video.
Work, in terms of moving countries in a healthy way out of distress. It does longer term. If you give them money and control everything, then, something will happen, something will change, but not the right things. It's not a market-driven approach.
That's the literal definition of insanity. Because I ran these numbers last year, and I might be a little fuzzy on the exact details, but Argentina, as an example of this, I think between 1956 and 2023, when I did this analysis, they had 296% annualized inflation. And over that period, they had gone to the IMF for loans 21 times. Mm-hmm. So once every 3 years, they were going to the IMF with the idea that if we do this, we'll fix our economic problems. And
then default.
Yes. It just doesn't work. But if people have this perception of the IMF as this prestigious banking institution that is going to solve problems, but historically that simply does not seem to be the case.
I'm just looking at the empirical evidence. When I know the IMF is coming in, for a while, that country is going to be under a lot of duress, in terms of an adjustment, the kind of a shock they administer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's for emerging markets. I mean, another thing, just global FX right now, you mentioned emerging markets, obviously Venezuela, Nigeria, we've seen Lebanon, Turkey, Egypt, Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's beginning to eke into the more established economies, like the yen, is pushing 158 right now.
Yeah, that yen, it crossed, it got to 161 or 162 before they got serious about not just jawboning, but doing something about it. Yeah, that's an interesting one because the yen has been over the years considered one of the safest currencies, but during this period when the dollar has appreciated, the yen has been cut in half relative to the dollar. We're big trading partners, right?
Yeah, and it's hard. I think it's hard for people to fathom that, and that's one of the insidious things of currency debasement is it's death by 1,000 cuts, frog boiling in water. You wake up one day and the Bank of Japan is having to intervene more than they'd like to.
Yeah.
To defend the peg.
Yes, that has been one of the big surprises of the year.